Welcome, students. This is your teacher, and I thought I would try and do a video lesson. Today, what we're going to do is comparison contrast essay. I hope I don't make you sick by moving my screen, and I hope it's big enough for you to view on your computer. And you should also have access to this link on this video and also on our D2L website. So I'm going to walk you through chapter 7 from another book on comparison contrast essays. So in comparison contrast essays, you explain the similarities and differences between two items. So clearly you're comparing and contrasting two items, or maybe more than two items. But if you keep it to 2 or 3, then it's more simple. So you might encounter questions such as these on an essay test. Compare the forms of government of Great Britain and the United States. Or the last one. I'm not going to read everything, so I'll focus on what I think is important. Compare contrast methods for promoting a new business, product, or service. So also, a couple questions that you were asked this semester, let's say on your, why isn't this working? There we go. On your in-class essay, let's go there. So imagine that you're living in Virginia and have a child who is about to start school. Which school would you prefer your child to attend? Charlottesville Waldorf School or B.F. Yancey Elementary School? Explain the reasons. This could easily turn into a comparison and contrast between these two schools, as you'll have to talk about the different kinds of technology that are at both these schools. The comparison contrast essay doesn't work for this one. Okay, it's an opinion. So you're not really comparing and contrasting. And Marion and Amy both have a similar language and culture experience. But both of the questions on siblings, if you did them, could be a comparison contrast style essay. So the first one, write an essay about your relationship with one of your siblings. Is your relationship similar to Stark's claims in the article Beyond Rivalry? So this is your relationship similar means that you're going to be comparing and contrasting to what Stark claimed. So this could be a comparison contrast essay. Or do you think it's important for children to have brothers and sisters? Do you think that only children may be at a disadvantage when they get older? So also here you could be talking about disadvantages and disadvantages of being an only child or having siblings. So what we'll go through today could definitely help you with this essay. Let's get back there. So as you read the following model essay, study its organization. Okay, so I'll actually read through this. Japan and the United States, different but alike. The culture of a place is an integral part of its society, whether that place is a remote Indian village in Brazil or a highly industrialized city in Western Europe. The culture of Japan fascinates people in the United States because at first glance, it seems so different. Everything that characterizes the United States has newness, racial heterogeneity, which means variety, vast territory, informality, and an ethic of individualism. So ethic means a culture of individualism. And this is absent in Japan. There, one finds an ancient and homogeneous society. So homogeneous is opposite to heterogeneity. The beginning of hetero means differences, and the beginning here, homo, means the same. An ethic that emphasizes the importance of groups and a tradition of formal behavior governing every aspect of daily living, from drinking tea to saying hello. On the surface, at least, US and Japanese societies seem totally opposite. So here we have one of those essays where we have a nice traditional introduction where the topic sentence, sorry, the thesis is at the very last sentence of the first paragraph. One obvious difference is the people. Japan is a homogeneous society of one nationality and a few underrepresented minority groups, such as the ethnic Chinese and Koreans. All areas of government and society are controlled by the Japanese majority. In contrast, although the United States is a country with originally European roots, its liberal immigration policies have resulted in it becoming a heterogeneous society of many ethnicities: Europeans, Africans, Asians, and Latinos. So again, heterogeneous means of many kinds. All are represented in all areas of US society, including business, education, and politics. Other areas of difference between Japan and the United States involve issues of group interaction and a sense of space. Whereas people in the United States pride themselves on individualism and informality, meaning not being overly polite, Japanese value groups and formality. People in the United States admire and reward a person who rises above the crowd. In contrast, a Japanese proverb says, "The nail that sticks up gets hammered down." In addition, while North American sense of size and scale developed out of the vastness of the continent, Japanese genius lies in the diminutive and miniature. So diminutive and miniature, both meaning small. For example, the United States builds airlines while Japan produces transistors. Transistors are small pieces of robotics that go in computers and things. I don't really know, but it's small. In spite of these differences, these two apparently opposite cultures share several important experiences. Both, for example, have transplanted cultures. Each nation has a mother society, China for Japan and Great Britain for the United States, that has influenced the daughter in countless ways in language, religion, art, literature, social customs, and ways of thinking. Japan, of course, has had more time than the United States to work out its unique interpretation of the older Chinese culture, but both countries reflect their cultural ancestry. Okay, I'm going down to the next page here. Both societies, moreover, have developed the art of business and commerce, of buying and selling, of advertising and mass producing to the highest levels. Few sights are more reassuring to people from the United States than the tens of thousands of busy stores in Japan, especially the beautiful, well-stocked department stores. To US eyes, they seem just like Macy's or Neiman Marcus at home. In addition, both Japan and the United States are consumer societies. The people of both countries love to shop and are enthusiastic consumers of convenience products and fast foods. Vending machines selling everything from fresh flowers to hot coffee are as popular in Japan as they are in the United States. And fast food noodle shops are as common in Japan as McDonald's restaurants are in the United States. A final similarity is that both Japanese and people in the United States have always emphasized the importance of work, and both are paying penalties for their commitment to it, increasing stress and weakening family bonds. People in the United States, especially those in business and in the professions, regularly put in 12 or more hours a day at their jobs, just as many Japanese executives do. Also, while the normal Japanese work week is 6 days, many people in the United States who want to get ahead voluntarily on Saturday and or Sunday in addition to their normal 5-day work week. Japan and the United States, different yet alike. Although the two societies differ in many areas, such as racial heterogeneity versus racial homogeneity, individualism versus group cooperation, and informal versus formal forms of behavior, they share more than one common experience. Furthermore, their differences probably contribute as much as their similarities toward the mutual interest the two countries have in each other. It will be interesting to see where this reciprocal fascination leads in the future. Reciprocal, meaning it's not one way. US is not the only one interested in Japan, and Japan is not just the one interested in the US, but both of them are interested in each other. So the fascination goes both ways. Okay, so that's the end of the paragraph, and then we'll have some questions. So, in which paragraphs are the similarities discussed? In which paragraphs are the differences discussed? So take a moment, pause this, and answer the question. I'm sorry. And now I will tell you, in which paragraph are the similarities discussed? The similarities are discussed from paragraph 5, 6, and 7. The differences are discussed at the beginning, in paragraphs 2 and 3. And we know this by the words, right? At the very beginning, the topic sentence, one obvious difference is the people. The topic sentence tells us right away we're talking about differences. The topic sentence of the second paragraph, the other areas of difference between Japan and the United States. So more areas of difference. And in this paragraph, we're going to list more than one because the topic is plural. In paragraphs 5, however, we're starting to talk about similarities, and we can see this again in the language. Ignoring paragraph 4 for one moment, both, for example, have something shared. Each nation has something similar. And then in the concluding sentence, but both countries reflect their cultural ancestry, showing a similarity. Paragraph 6, both societies, moreover, so again, talking about them as one. So you're comparing when you're telling them as one. Paragraph 7, a final similarity is that both Japanese and people in the United States have. Okay, so this word both is repeated in all of the topic sentences, showing similarities. The next question is, what's the function of paragraph 4? Here's paragraph 4 again. So what is the function of this paragraph? The function of the paragraph is that it sets up the difference between paragraphs 2 and 3, our comparison. In spite of these differences, these two apparently opposite cultures share several important experiences. So we know that in spite of these differences, this talks about paragraphs 2 and 3, and the rest of the essay will talk about similarities. These two apparently opposite cultures share several important experiences. So you have the differences at the beginning and then similarities at the end. So the point to a good essay is to have good organization. And there's a couple different ways, different models that we can organize our essay. So if we look here, the point-by-point organization. So you have your introduction as normal and your conclusion, but in the body, each different section will focus on a certain thing that you're comparing and contrasting. So for example, with salary, you'll talk about salary, frequency of raises. Part of the paragraph will look at job X and look at $30 an hour. In the same section, you'll discuss job Y, and you'll see that it's $25 an hour. Your analysis in this section will say that they're different, and probably that you would hope to have job X instead of job Y. In the next section on benefits, you introduce the idea of benefits. You would look at job X and say, oh, it's good. At job Y, also good. And then your analysis would be that they're the same. And so on for advancement opportunities in workplace. So each section would focus on one of these topics, comparing and contrasting in the same section. How long your section is, how long your paragraph, how long your essay is, would depend on how much you have to say. This is one style of organizing. Another style for organizing is block organization. And in this case, you would focus on two main things. For example, similarities first. You would have a section on similarities. First, you would talk about benefits maybe, and second, you would talk about commute distance from home. Next, you would talk about differences. And then you had 3 different paragraphs under this idea of differences, where you might talk about salary, opportunities for advancement, workplace atmosphere. The point is that a focused model, a focused outline will help the shape of your essay and the clarity of your ideas, because you'll have it very clearly organized in 2 sections of similarities and differences, or different sections that you compare and contrast individually. Again, the point being that a good outline will structure your essay and make your essay more clear. So now let's move on and complete the outline of this model. So take a moment and do this, and then I'll walk you through it. Just pause. I'm going to keep talking. So we have the thesis statement. On the surface, at least, US and Japanese societies seem totally opposite. So the first section on the surface talks about differences, but most of the essay will talk about not being the opposite. Okay, so this is a thesis statement that only actually talks about differences, even though most of the essay talks about similarities. So the topic sentence in paragraph A, or actually paragraph 2, one obvious difference is the people. So they have a small section on Japan as a homogeneous society, and then they use the opposite word. United States, newness, racial heterogeneity is the discussion for the US. In paragraph 3, the topic sentence, other areas of difference between Japan and the United States involve issues of group interaction and the sense of peace. Again, the very first sentence of every paragraph is a topic sentence. This makes it easier to find, and this is a good model for your writing. In paragraph 3, or B, right here in our outline, the first part is individualism. The second part is a contrast. People in the United States admire and reward a person who rises above the crowd. In contrast, so they're contrasting within one sentence. Then they go to, making a mistake here. So rising above the crowd, admired and rewarded, is the US versus Japan, where it is not admired. It's the opposite. And then in the last piece, where in North America's sense of size and scale, the country is big. Japan lies in the small, the diminutive and miniature. The example given is United States builds airplanes and Japan produces transistors. Sorry, that part may have been confusing. I'm working on getting all this correct. But let's move forward. And then we have this transition here. It almost looks like another thesis statement. This is a good model. This could work as a split thesis statement when it's done on purpose. But you see it's complete. So this hints at the differences. This one here hints at the similarities. But even here, this on the surface at least, hints that we're not only going to be talking about the differences. So moving on, in paragraph 5, the topic sentences both have transplanted cultures. First, they talk about each nation has a mother society, China for Japan, Great Britain for the US. In the next paragraph, paragraph 6, or D in our outline, topic sentence, both societies, moreover, have developed the art of business and commerce, of buying and selling. First example is department stores that both countries have. The second example is that they're both consumer societies. And the first thing is vending machines. Vending machines selling everything from fresh flowers and hot coffee are popular in Japan, as they are in the United States. And fast food, noodle shops in Japan, McDonald's restaurants in the US. And then E, a final similarity. Again, the topic sentence is the first one. The first example to support the sentence. In the US, people are at work 12 or more hours a day, just as some Japanese do. The second example, Japanese work week is 6 days, but many people in the US work on the weekend, so extending their work week. Now, first we need to understand the question that we might be comparing and contrasting in our essay. Next, we need a good outline, okay? And while you're drafting, you could be outlining the second time. So outlining after your first draft is perfectly fine. You should outline for your first draft, but if you're outlining for the second draft as well, that is a very good practice. It will give better organization to your second draft. And so you need some signal words. Okay, so these are comparison signal words. When you're talking about similarities, these are a list of signal words that continue on to the next page. Again, I hope I'm not making you sick. So here's some practice. You can use these signal words and add them to the sentences. So these sentences contain something on the first sentence is similar to something in the second sentence. And you will add a signal word, comparison signal word, in the middle and join these sentences. So this sentence, the example, the United States has a democratic form of government, period. Great Britain has a democratic form of government. So instead of having these two sentences that seem similar, you can make them obvious similar by using a comparison word or phrase. So I'll do a couple orally, but this is a very good time when you can practice yourself. Bring them to me during class or office hours. So I'll just do two. The United States operates under a two-party system. Great Britain operates under a two-party system. So very easily, you could rewrite it as both the United States and Great Britain operate under a two-party system, for example. You could use many other different words and phrases. The next one, British Parliament has two separate houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The United States Congress has two separate houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So here we could say, the British Parliament has two separate houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords, comma, similarly, the United States Congress has two separate houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Actually, that would be a semicolon right here. Semicolon, similarly, comma. And the examples continue. In part B, it says write 5 sentences of your own comparing two things in which you are familiar. Use a different comparison signal in each sentence. And then you may want to use one of the topics given at the top of the page, 119, for your essay at the end of the chapter. So we're not doing those ones, but you might want to use one of these. Okay, if you're doing technology and education choice or siblings and birth order choice questions, you can use comparison contrast style here. One thing that I want to make clear too is even if you have a section or two of comparison contrast, it doesn't mean that your whole essay has to be comparison contrast. So while this will be very useful, it doesn't have to be your entire essay. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. I want to encourage that flexibility and creativity. But here's a chance where you can write 5 sentences using these comparison signal words for your essay. And when you're done comparing, you will contrast. So contrast signal words. Unexpected result. So here is the list. Sorry, I don't mean to make you sick. And it moves on to the next page, but you should have a copy of this for yourself. And the exercises are similar, so I'll go through 2 of them. The exact same practice. 2 sentences that are opposite. So, number 1, the government of the United States, the government of Great Britain, dissimilar in several aspects. So the model sentence, the governments of the United States and Great Britain are dissimilar in several aspects. So just using this as an adjective with the verb to be. I think that's not a great example, but anyhow. The executive in Great Britain is called the Prime Minister. The chief executive in the US is called the President. So let's look for a signal word. The chief executive in Great Britain is called the Prime Minister. Semicolon. In contrast, comma, the chief executive in the United States is called the President. Number 3, in the United States, the President fulfills the function of both political leader and head of state. These 2 functions are separate in Great Britain. Adding a contrast signal word. While in the United States, the President fulfills the functions of both political leader and head of state, comma, these 2 functions are separate in Great Britain. So you can go through these sentences and add your signal words. And again, part B, to write 5 sentences of your own contrasting 2 things with which you're familiar. I would suggest that you use these contrast words again for either the technology and education choice question or sibling and birth order choice question, whichever one that you did. The rest of this chapter, there's a few more instructions, some review. So comparison contrast is a common pattern for writing about similarities and differences. It's used in all academic fields. It's not a simple process, but I do want to emphasize that because you have one section that's comparison contrast, it doesn't mean that your whole essay has to be, but it could be. So Keep that flexibility. Make a choice and stick with it. There are two common ways to organize your comparison contrast essay. Point by point organization. You discuss each similarity and each difference in some order, usually the order of importance, without grouping them into blocks. In this type of organization, you may discuss a similarity and then a difference, and then a similarity and then a difference. In block organization, you first discuss all the similarities in a block and then all the differences in another block. Of course, you may begin with a block of differences and then in the second part, discuss similarities. And 3, use comparison and contrast signal words to help your reader understand your points of comparison and contrast. So by using the language, it'll make it much more clear to your reader that you're comparing and contrasting, just like a good outline will. So here's writing practice. I'm not going to lead you through this, but the final bit is a practice where you have to apply what you have learned. Sorry. So it's one more reading where you need to read through it, and then at the very end are some questions on organization, so you can recognize the outline style and the transitions that are throughout this reading. Whatever you find helpful, try and use in your essay. I'm not going to go through this right now or ever. That's not true. And there's questions at the end. Okay, so answer the questions. And if you have any questions, the way that this is set up is that it's fairly odd. These questions are fairly obvious. So when you don't know the answer, you should come and talk to me. Because they're using the signal words that they've mentioned, and they're going to be using one of the obvious outline choices, you should be able to get all these answers. If you can't, that's okay. Go through the video again and see if you can outline everything and look over the contrast signal words and comparison signal words, and then see if you can get the right answers, if these answers are a little more obvious the second time around. Okay, so this is my first try. I will get better at this. I hope this was informative. Let me know in the comments section. And I will see you in class.